everybody, Son Goshuaku here! Son Goku and Chichi. When you look at Goku and Chichi, I think so many times a lot of people in the world who look at Dragon Ball, they look at basically what goes on for what we see on screen or reading the manga, but think about what went on in those 5-year time skips from the end of Dragon Ball into DBZ. Think about what happened in those 3-year time skips when they were preparing for the Jinzuko Negan, aka androids. Think about what happens in 7-year time skip when she first hears Goku's coming back. She's excited because she gets to introduce Goten to his father for the first time, and then she's concerned, does she look too old and everything? So there's just these things about Goku that you could tell she really loves, and I agree, she has a lot of patience. And at the end of the day, you know, like so many fans, I used to complain about Chi-Chi early on, like, oh my gosh, like, you have to save the world in order for Gohan to become a scholar. But at the end of DBZ, I'm like, you know, at the end of the day, she's just a mother who wanted the best for her son, and that's something that basically is what Chi-Chi's all fighting over, and that's something about the relationship. There's no abuse in their relationship from a physical standpoint, a mental standpoint. More actually, when I think about it, there are a couple of times in Dragon Ball Super where Chi-Chi does get physical with Goku to prove her point, but how serious can we take it given that we know how truly strong Son Goku is in Dragon Ball Super? So obviously he is allowing her to do so. But my main point here is, anytime she's ever yelled at Goku, is just because she wants things. She wants Goku to have a job to help provide for the family. She wants Gohan to have a good education. Now, I'm not saying I agree about her certain ideals that she had and the way she went about those things, but there is some lovingness in that family, and you see a lot during the 9-day wait for the Cell games. So it's just between those two things. I think Goku and Chi-Chi's not the most horrible couple. You hear so many times people talk about Goku's the worst father ever, they're the worst couple ever, and I'm like, I don't think it's that bad. There's some love there. It's just, I think there is some disagreements that we get there. I can see Lennox's face. But the thing is, at the end of the day, Goku, he is selfish, and I agree with that part, because actually one of the biggest things of reason why I did put them at number 4 is because at the end of Dragon Ball Z, that's just a BS move. Goku leaving the tournament to go train Oob for whatever reason. I don't know why he can't just treat it like a 9-to-5 job. Use the instantaneous movement, train Oob all day, and come home and be with his wife. Especially with all the added material we got from Dragon Ball Super. I don't see why. We now know he has Migate no Gokui, the Ultra Instinct. Why can't Goku just even... How fast are these guys at this point now? But at that point, obviously, Toriyama was probably just ready to hang it up with Dragon Ball, working on it from the 80s up to 95, but stuff like that, there's just things compared to the other couples that we're going to talk about. Goku, there's just certain family values that Goku doesn't really fully understand, and that's one of the reasons I had to put him at my least favorite. I think clearly, honestly, Gohan and Gohan, just period, basically has really exceeded his parents, honestly, in that department, and we'll get more to that later. But that's my final take on Goku and Chi-Chi. They're a couple that they do have that love for each other, and I feel like their motives are right, but it's just not done the same way. But I just don't think they're the worst thing ever.
But let me ask you this, though. What makes you think that Goku has, like, such love for Chi-Chi? Because everyone says that, but I see it the other way around. Chi-Chi's like, oh my gosh, Goku, and she cooks for him all this stuff. Like, she still supports him. How does he love her back? Like, in what way do you see? Because
you see in Dragon Ball, anytime they mess Goku's family or Earth is at harm's way, Goku goes all out to protect his family. He died twice in the battle with Raditz Cell. You know, what did he tell Gohan? You know, I'm proud of you. Take good care of your mother. Like, he does love them enough when he knows it comes down to life or death. Yeah, he has shown in the series that he loves them. It's just those family values. He doesn't have a good understanding because, as Lennox mentioned, Goku is designed by Toriyama to be like a man-child. I compare Goku kind of like the male lion. And if you look at the way lions are, the male lions, they basically don't do all the work. It's the lioness that do all the work. But if you come on their territory, that male lion's gonna come and rip you to shred and defend its pride. That's what I consider Goku. Yeah, there's just certain things about him as a family man that obviously is not gonna settle right with all of us, but let Cell or Boo come and want to destroy the planet, he's there to defend his family. And that's the type of love that I'm meaning for Goku. Like, he does love them in that sense.
He gives everybody that type of love, though.
Well, that's what I was about to say. I'm like, but he treats everyone on that level. So it's not that you're my wife, I care for you. It's like, you're a person on this planet, you know, and I'm
Goku's
going to defend the planet and you.
Goku's
you know,
not
like
perfect.
it doesn't.
Oh, I can't.
But you know,
when we get to the couple, I'm
Goku's not perfect. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying Goku is perfect, let alone the greatest spouse. I'm just saying that I don't consider him to be this horrible husband that a lot of the fan base feel he is, though I do totally understand why they feel that way. I'm just talking about, to me, I feel that someone who willingly abuses their spouse, whether it be mentally or physically, or even cheats on their spouse and never tries to make amends, all fits that category to me as being a much more horrible spouse, which those are all things Goku has never done to Chi-Chi. Now, I'm not trying to make excuses for Goku, but one that I feel that has to be understand here about his character is like what Lennox said, how he's a man-child. He has that man-child mentality. Remember, Goku was raised in the woods and didn't have a proper upbringing in society, which largely led to him not having proper understanding of family values, like other characters in the series or to us, the audience, in reality. So, going back to your question, Rebecca Rose Gold, despite the man-child mentality where Goku should know better, but he doesn't, I do feel he loves Chi-Chi, but in his own weird way. But it's because Chi-Chi has a full understanding of Goku and his shortcomings, she gives that love back to him. So it all comes down to a combination of Goku's doing things like, not out of spite, but out of not knowing better, even though he should have matured to know better by the end of the series. Now, at the end of the day, I feel Goku's not this despicable, monstrous husband. There's a lot worse spouses out there. Goku himself just doesn't have it up there all the way because he's so focused on his fighting. That's all I'm saying. I don't think he's the
When we
worst.
get to the couple, I'm gonna bookmark this moment because there is a defining factor in what Goku does and what another individual does.
But hey,
I think I know. I think I know, and I think that's what I was thinking of when I said it. Where I'm like,
But hey, this is a good conversation.
You know.
I'm glad we're getting so many opinions here. But let's move on to the couple that came in at number 3, Krillin and Hachigo, aka Krillin and number 18. Krillin and 18 both have the understanding of family values. Someone told me their problem with 18 was basically that she seems too money hungry. But when you look at the actual series, every time she wants money, it's to provide for her family. She entered the tournament because she wanted more money to help provide. Listen, if you live with your spouse and your 2-year-old daughter with a 300-plus-year-old perverted man in that small house, I'm pretty sure you want to get out of there too, right? So I can't blame 18 for wanting to have money to provide, which it looks like they were able to eventually provide for their own selves in Dragon Ball Super. And then in Krillin, doing the police job, wanting to basically provide for his family. There's that unity. They really both want the best for Marin, and that's what I really love. And I've also got to give a shout out to Geekdom 101, one of the most knowledgeable Dragon Ball fans on the planet. He talked a lot about the relationship between Krillin and 18 and what it means to show that it goes so much deeper than looks at times, basically, because everyone has a preference when it comes to who they're attracted to. I'll even say that applies to looks as well, which is one of the reasons I really like Team 4-Star's take on the 18 kissing Krillin scene, where I think 18 calls society's definition of beauty BS or something. So definitely shout out to TFS writers Kaiser Neko, Lenny Patur, and Takahata 101, because it definitely adds to my point about how some people are going to look at Krillin like, oh, he's a short guy, and then you have 18 like, oh, they're going to think, well, there's no way she's going to want anything to do with this short guy with the way they look. But it's not about that. It's so much more. Krillin and 18 had this emotional connection, and I really love that Toriyama put that together, and you see this put to the test in Dragon Ball Super in the Tournament of Power, at least in the anime version, where Ribrianne was basically, she talked all this whole time about love this, love that, and when she found out Krillin was 18, she's like, he's ugly, why would you marry that? And 18 lit her up, did that awesome tribute to when Goku killed King Piccolo, basically with the fists and everything, and blowing her up and everything, and it made a huge impact because from that moment she said, I guess, love goes far deeper than basically what you can see with your eyes, which is one of the biggest things I think Toriyama has done with this relationship. So I really do like that dynamic between Krillin and 18. Linux did make a good point. I personally am not a fan, and I know they do it a lot in like the Funimation where 18 calls him a wimp, and even in the anime mostly and stuff. I'm not a really big fan of that, but at the same time I do also see the other flip side part of that, where basically it's what pushes pushes him. Like there is a part in Super where they did something with the writing where he got hit by a bullet. Since when? Launch has been shooting Krillin in the face with a machine gun for how long? So what has gone on with Krillin in Dragon Ball Super? The fact that he is down, he's getting hurt by bullets and stuff. But at the end of the day, when you get past that, I do think 18 is there for him and loves him and pushes him. And like you said, Lennox, she's not going to let anybody, talk down on Krillin. She might do it, but she's not going to let anybody come down there and talk about it. And I just think it's really good. And it's a great story for Krillin, especially if you go anime only with Marin. When he gave up Marilyn, the one with the blue hair during the Garlic Jr. saga, which I know is forbidden, right? Fun times. I just gotta say it, Garlic Jr. saga. Whoever forgets the classic line, "Come to Big Daddy Garlic."
See, I thought about that in my head. I wasn't gonna say it, but I thought it.
That line always cracks me up. But the thing is, in that arc, Krillin thought that Marin was too good for him, and when he ended up letting her go, she was gonna say, I would have said yes. And then when Krillin was like, "Oh, she would have," she just gets in with another guy and just hops off, which is a good sign that Krillin should have never got with her and everything. But then, and later on, he meets 18, and things are a lot more better, and it works out for him. And Kat, you're right; they took the time to know each other, so that's why I agree that they are definitely a better couple, just slightly over Goku and Chi-Chi from a family standpoint. All right, Rebecca, go ahead and finish us off.
Wait, did you say just slightly?
Yeah, because I said in my opinion, because as I mentioned earlier, when you usually see Chi-Chi yelling at Goku, it's for a pretty good reason, whereas in the anime version, it just seems like there's these times 18 makes these straight up mean comments towards Krillin. I'll use a couple examples in the anime version of Dragon Ball Super's Tournament of Power arc. I think it's like between episodes 99 and 100. So 18 basically lets her guard down and is nearly eliminated, but Krillin ends up going ahead and saving her, and basically decides to poke a little fun at her by pointing out her mistake, because as we see earlier in episodes of Dragon Ball Super, 18 has no problem pointing out Krillin's mistakes, but 18, she ends up getting annoyed by this and ends up telling him not to laugh, and even the Elder Kaioshin's like, "Oh, that could have been a really touching moment." But then later on, when Krillin lets his guard down, moments later, and is eliminated, everybody just goes ahead and verbally craps on the guy, and his wife, who you think would have his back the most, ends up making the comment that, and you call yourself my husband, and just makes Krillin feel like total crap. And from there, it just comes off to me in that moment that 18 doesn't like Krillin calling her out on her mistakes, but it's okay for her to call out Krillin on his mistakes. And I'm like, yeah, that just doesn't sit well with me. And then my second example comes again from an anime only scenario with the ending of Dragon Ball Z, is basically where during the Tenkaichi Budokai, aka World Martial Arts Tournament, 18 asks Krillin why didn't he enter the Tenkaichi Budokai, and he responds basically that he doesn't have a chance against Goku or Vegeta. And honestly, when you think about how Dragon Ball Super takes place before the end of Dragon Ball Z, who knows how strong these guys are within that in that tournament, with like the people you had in there, like what, Goku, Vegeta, Goten, Trunks, I think Fat Majin Buu, Pan, and a reincarnated Kid Buu in the form of Oob. So yeah, 18's response to justify her question is that she won the tournament 10 years prior, but gave the victory to Mark Satan. And Krillin is quick to point out how in that tournament, Goku, Vegeta, Gohan, etc., they all forfeit due to the whole Majin Buu fiasco. And if we're honest here, we know 18, even back then, had no chance against a slacking Gohan. And then that being said, it's basically her only response to this is to tell her husband that he has no nerves or guts, something along those lines, once again making Krillin feel like utter crap, which basically always made me wonder at that point, like, well, if 18 was that confident that he could earn some cash, then why didn't she enter, given that she's even stronger than Krillin? So yeah, it's just those little things. But once again, these are examples that aren't present in their manga counterparts, so it's most likely just the writing staff at Toei who wants to add this unnecessary element to their relationship. That's why in the anime I say they are just slightly above Goku and Chi Chi because at least there's a much stronger sense of family values between both Krillin and 18, plus neither one is going to abandon the other, unlike Goku at the end of the series. However, on the flip side, Goku and Chi-Chi sure don't talk to one another the way that 18 does to Krillin. So if we're talking strictly what Toriyama himself has written, I agree, way better couple than Goku and Chi-Chi. Son Gohan and Videl, my favorite couple. They are the greatest couple in Dragon Ball history, and here's why. All of these different relationships we can talk about, there's this or there's that aspect of here and everything, but with Gohan and Videl, I think it's the best romance Toriyama's ever written. And if anybody heard the interviews, Toriyama says himself that he's not good at romance, but I mean, what can you say about this relationship? I mean, think about Videl was so, like, you know, really pushy and everything, and borderline, didn't even respect Gohan, that he wanted to keep his secret safe. She blackmailed him into the tournament early on, but you see as she became more and more in love with Gohan, she changed into like just the sweetest person. And that's what I really like about Gohan and Videl's whole relationship, is not just that they're sweet, but they really have each other's backs. I talked about earlier is that Gohan definitely exceeded his parents. You know, you think about Chi-Chi being this overbearing mother. I don't see Gohan being that way with Pan. Case in point, just look at the end of Dragon Ball Z. He's letting Pan be free and train with her grandfather. When we see Gohan at that age, Bulma's asking, what do you want to be? A scholar, because my mom says I want to be a scholar or whatever. So it's like Gohan gives her more freedom, and even though it's not a part of the official continuity in Dragon Ball GT, it looked like even Gohan still let his daughter be free and everything and stuff like that. And then when you look at Videl, you know, I do miss what Videl was. She was such an awesome character from a fighting standpoint. Even though she got the crap beat out of her by Spokovich, she kept going ahead fighting and stuff. So it would have been nice to see that that dynamic continue with Videl. But like I said, she became this sweet person. Some of the episodes in Dragon Ball Super I thought really added to this is when I believe Mr. Satan and Gohan are being reckless with Pan, and Chi-Chi ends up going ahead and taking Pan away from them, and then Mr. Satan and Chi-Chi end up getting into this back and forth about what Pan's gonna be like, I guess how she would be raised or something, and it eventually ends up to where Pan and Videl are locked in a room with Chi-Chi and eventually Bulma, and they both are asking her, well, what do you want Pan to be? And Videl's like, hey, I appreciate it. You know, she appreciates the advice that she's getting from her family and friends, but she's like, you know, hey, she wants Pan to grow up the way she wants to, you know, as opposed to what her parents or even the grandparents here would want her to be. And I love that because they both want to take on this new responsibility as parents together. They know there's going to be ups and downs, but the main thing is they wanted to do it together. And I love that aspect. Another great episode that I thought they did in Dragon Ball Super is when the guy tries to set up Gohan and have the actress kiss him, and then he takes a photo and says basically, oh, look at this, basically your husband is cheating, which was very out of this world for Dragon Ball. I'm like, wow, I've never thought I see a cheating storyline in Dragon Ball, right? But you bring that in there, and when he sends it to Videl, I already imagine most of us like, this is it for Gohan. And the first thing Videl does, she gets in that guy's face, takes the basically rips up the photo, and she tells him like, oh no, she knows her husband. She know that if there's a reason he's in the photo, it must be a good reason. Like, who are you to be coming here messing with people's marriages and all that stuff and everything? And you know, I feel like us as the audience were with Videl because we know Gohan, the type of person he is. He can be naive at some points like his father, but we know his heart is completely pure. He's pure of heart, and Videl knows that, and that is the strong love that she has for Gohan. Shout out again to Geekdom 101. When he reviewed that episode, he was like, yo, Videl's a good woman, yo. She knows her husband and everything, and I just thought that was amazing, the strength that they have, and it lines up to the end of DBZ when we see him with Videl and Pan, and I know Gohan and Videl as characters, they've gone downhill compared to where they were in the Buu saga. Oh, and speaking of the Buu saga, I know, even though it's only filler and only in the movies, I think one of the cutest things I've seen in Dragon Ball has to be the whole Great Saiyaman, Saiyawoman duel thing, because at the beginning of the Buu saga, Videl thought it was absolutely lame that Gohan was doing this gimmick, but then she falls so much in love with Gohan that by the end of the saga, she's now doing that very very same lame gimmick with him. I just thought it was adorable, showing just how much love can affect a person. But when you look at them as a couple, I mean, Gohan, he ended up going ahead, becoming a scholar. He's got himself a nice house. Him and Videl are a happy couple. They're raising their own daughter. They want the responsibility of raising their own. Truly, to me, Gohan really exceeded his parents in that aspect, and whatever they're lacking fighting, he more than makes up for it in life, and that's why they are the greatest couple to me in Dragon Ball. One thing I also forgot to mention about Gohan and Videl, I think the way Toriyama did Gohan, the reveal of Pan being born, and how it tied into the Super Saiyan God and everything, one of the most beautiful moments in all of Dragon Ball history. Gohan's immediate reaction to Videl, knowing like we're gonna have a baby, just oh my gosh, I love this
really
couple so much. Vegeta and Bulma. Dragon Ball Super really is what I feel helps this relationship and makes it rank very high for me. Because if we only had just DBZ to go off of, let's be honest, Vegeta was a jerk. Like, I talked about Goku being selfish, but he's a man-child. He kind of doesn't, he should know better, but he kind of doesn't. Whereas Vegeta was just, he did not care at all in Dragon Ball Z. If you go to that Cell saga, when Trunks asked him, why didn't you go ahead and save, why didn't you go ahead and save Bulma, and your son? He's like, I really care about those androids or something like that. And it wasn't until you get to the Trunks death from Cell that Vegeta starts to finally change. And I love that going back into the fight with Goku the second time around, when he goes like, he was the perfect warrior, cold and ruthless. He lived by his strength alone, uninhibited by foolish emotion. But then, slowly over the years, I became one of you. And what's his last thing he told Goku? He says, settle down, formed a family. I even grew quite fond of them. And that 7-year time skip is so important because remember, after Goku died, he said he lost the will to fight, which he obviously did fight, but man, it's like with Goku out of the way, he really started focusing on Bulma and Trunks. And obviously, when you look at the way they react to him, even before the whole Babidi taking over him, they love, just like Linux was mentioning, you could tell Bulma loved him, and she was going through mixed emotions. Do I bring Vegeta back because this is the person that's become her husband over the 7 years, or does she not bring him back because he just did double genocide on a massive amount of people? And I just thought that was some of the greatest emotion. And Linux has pointed out to me several times, and many others, Toriyama, when it comes to Toriyama, Vegeta really is the greatest character development you've ever seen. And you start to see towards the end of the Buu saga when he's like, was it Elder Kai? He's like, so Goku bribing me with boobies? Kakarot, this woman didn't happen to be Bulma. Well, Vegeta, you idiot! There's no way that old Jesus is putting his tips on my Bulma! That was our first taste at that. And you see at the end of DBZ, he's there with Bulma, his new daughter Bra, Trunks. Talk about having your whole family named after underwear, right? You gotta love that Toriyama puns. It is told to us towards the end of Z that, okay, Vegeta became a better person, but we never got to see it. That's what makes one of the best things in Dragon Ball Super so great, is Vegeta's character development. How poetic is it that in Dragon Ball Super, the beginning against Beerus during Battle of Gods, that Vegeta, all these years of training is not what makes him surpass Goku. But when the God of Destruction himself hits his wife, he becomes even stronger. While I don't agree with the logic of the SSJ form overpowering SSJ3, I thought that was really powerful. That is what made Vegeta in that moment stronger than Goku. Not his will to surpass his rival, but the will to protect his wife. That was so powerful for me. I really love that. And a lot too that I like in Super is you see Vegeta wants to make up for what he did with Trunks. Think about that, and Rebecca brought it up. Think about Vegeta when he wanted, even with the Tournament of Power, he's like, no, Kakarot, I'm not going. I want to be here for the birth of my daughter. You see, he realized, you know what? I effed up as a father the first time Trunks was born. I don't want to do it again for my second child. And he even took Trunks to the amusement park. He's just so much making up for what he was. And I just think the development, the big thing that separates Vegeta and Bulma versus Goku and Chichi is that Goku, as a family man, did not mature, not that much at least. Vegeta did. a lot, and I think that's why it's an easy pickings for Vegeta to be up here. And like Liddy said, there's still more to be developed, and I think from an entertainment standpoint, like Rebecca mentioned, Gohan and Videl are vanilla, but I think when it comes to Vegeta and Bulma, you have arguably one of the most popular characters from the fighter standpoint, and one of the most popular human characters, because Toriyama has kept both these characters relevant, so it's like two of the most charismatic characters coming together, and I think that's why this has become the most popular couple in the whole Dragon Ball fandom. And I go back to that with Goku and Chi-Chi's relationship, is the fact that even no matter how many times Goku is gone, they still love him no matter what when he comes around. And I think that's the same thing can be applied to Trunks. Before Vegeta even hugged him once, he thought so highly of his father. You see it all. He's father this, he's like, my dad this, my dad that. And that's why I admit so much when he's like, Trunks, I haven't held you once since the day you were born. And he hugs him for the first time. Just, man, good stuff. Yeah, so great. We can really tell that, I can tell among this panel that the Vegeta's character development and how it ties into what Bulma has really emotionally affected us all as Dragon Ball fans. I'll add on to, I do think Goku had a huge help in developing Vegeta as well, because everybody called him jerks. Goku was always the one person that never let Vegeta really get under his skin. I think Vegeta, Bulma, those two really saw the best, and you had Trunks. They all three saw the absolute best in Vegeta, and eventually, it took a long time, but eventually Vegeta reached the mountaintop finally, and just becoming a better person to what we saw today. It has been an absolute pleasure talking all the four main Dragon Ball couples with you all. I had a lot of fun with this discussion. Yeah. I hope you all have a lot of great time watching this or even listening to this, and hopefully it takes your mind off of what's going on in the world today. So hopefully we provided a great entertainment for you in this discussion. So this is the part where